Hey everyone at Fortified Labs or TZ8 it is Thanksgiving today. Maybe you don't celebrate it over there, but happy Thanksgiving anyway. I saw this application that was sent to the teia team. And we are working on, I'm part of the core team there. So we are working on the application because that was sent to Jovi and it was recommended that we do something with that. So right now, Melissa Sheep and a few others are kind of like spearheading that. And so you should be hearing from the Teia team probably pretty shortly soon. But this is actually an application for teia.cafe because I was looking at the site, with Etherlink and Fortify Labs. Oh, hey, probably a few of you are gonna be watching this, but I'm like, oh yeah, why not? Why not apply? And so, just to give you an idea of like how I do things at Teia Cafe, this is going to be a very unusual video because I'm doing this part. I did look through the this pitch deck right here, but I was filling it in, and it said like, oh, is there a live demo or a pitch deck? And I realized I haven't made one yet. So I'm making this video to try to like cover what the company is about and basically make the case that our project is worth supporting. So I'm Ryan Tanaka, and you've probably seen me, if you're in Tezos, posting about Tezos stuff like pretty much every day for the last forever, and and I'm also the Teia community core member. So that was my introduction to Teia, but also to the Tezos ecosystem as a whole. But I've been in crypto since 2014. I was in the Ethereum ICO, when they first got in. I did mine some Bitcoin prior to that, but only for a little while. And I'm also owner of a CryptoPunk 8973. You can check that if you want. I have the links all right there. I'm trying to actually sell it off, but that's a whole nother thing. So so I've been in the space for quite a while, and if you're not aware, I'm very, very active, and I do most of my work with Teia right now. So more specifically, it's this site Teia Cafe, and this video might run a little long, so that's why I'm trying to keep the details like more towards the end. But that's basically who I am and what I'm doing in a nutshell, And Teia Cafe is basically like the application says, I'm very, very transparent about everything, and I'm probably gonna, everyone's gonna see this, so and that's part of the blockchain. The reason why I got into the blockchain is because of everything's on chain, and I like the transparency of it, and that's kind of how the whole site functions. And so, like it says right here, our site is completely on chain. I've had a lot of people recommend that I use databases to do this and that, but kind of resisted that up until now because the blockchain itself is a database, and I thought, okay, how far can we get away with not using a traditional one? And we're still doing it. uh, maybe for like, minor things like, I don't know, I'm talking about doing notifications, maybe you might need one, but that's like all minor stuff, right? Like we don't actually save anyone's data, and you'll kind of see that as I go through the site right now. So I've been working on this site for the last, God, 3 years. I mean, yeah, it's getting to three. It was under another name prior to that, but yeah. So we've been working on this site for several years, and we haven't really marketed it. It's always been online. I like to get direct feedback from users. Even if the site is in an early stage, like it was. So it wasn't like it was hidden or anything, but I didn't really advertise it much until recently, because I think the site kind of reached the point where ready to show it to people. So I'm gonna zoom in a bit. Okay, so now I'm gonna kind of go through some of the what makes the site interesting and unique, because we've done things in a very, very different way. I work a lot with the developer Joe Simon. You might have known him because he's very, very active. He helped build 8 by Do. Remember that site? Tesseract. There's just like too many to mention. But he's a really, really good dev, and I'm lucky to be able to work with him. So he's the one that has designed the smart contracts and a lot of the things on the back end that I'm not as familiar with. I do most of the design and the front end UI, and at least as far as like development goes, that's kind of what my role is, I guess. On top of doing everything else. So okay, so I'm just gonna go. I mean, here's the basic site, right? This is the gallery style. I better watch out for nudity because they could get in trouble with YouTube. So I'll stop there. You kind of get it, right? And it basically kind of you can set when you hit the play button. If you look on the bottom right, there's a timer there where you can set how long you want each picture to stay, and you hit play, and after this many seconds it'll automatically cycle to the next one. Yep. And so this is Teia's recent feed. So you can pull up all kinds of stuff from it. And Teia is still very active. Like I work on this site pretty much every day, and every day there's always something new. And so that's what really keeps me going. This cool art being minted all the time, even now. And like Teia has certain artworks that doesn't show up on object sometimes, because it's more international, right? It has a lot of the remnants from the Hicketnut community, and there's a lot of overlap between that and object, of course, but sometimes here you'll find some gems that you won't see anywhere else, and that's kind of why I created this site. I wanted to highlight more of that. So in that vein, we created a lot of, I did say we're a discovery platform, right? So I have a lot of feeds here of different types to help people search for things, So people are interested in 3D models, PDFs. PDFs are kind of unusual, right? But they are out there. PDFs are sometimes pretty big, so okay, there we go. Takes a while to load. Some of these are like several megs, or I think one of them I saw was like 50. So we have even interactive stuff, code-based art, right? This is slightly, well, it's actually really different from FX Hash because FX Hash has their own generative process, right? They have their own platform. Here's a disclaimer, be careful about stuff. Um, when you run code on here. Okay, infinite loop. S key. Okay, well, I mean, yeah. But the stuff that gets printed on or minted on Teia is actually different from the stuff you see on FX Hash or even Object. FX Hash mints go to Object, right? But you'll find unique things in here you can't get anywhere else. Like really, really, you know. So we also have MIDI. I'm pretty proud of this one because we did this through the polling system on Teia. Governance. Polls, not polls. So we did a poll on hello everyone. Yeah. Oh, I'm glad someone's using it. Yeah, okay, this is all live, okay? Like I'm doing this in the moment. So yeah, it is what it is. I just like to be open, with everything. Okay, so this is also important. We did some polls here and we added custom license options, which would be a big part of teia.cafe also. But we also I made a poll asking people if they wanted MIDI. There you go. It's really simple. These are token-based votes. And I'm like, hey, do you want MIDI? Do you want MIDI on Teia? Do you want to be able to mint MIDI files? And if you don't know, MIDI is like a digital format that a lot of musicians and composers use, So, and I think a lot of them can be considered to be like art forms in themselves, So it's just like, oh, do people want it? And they said yes, and then so we did it. It took a while, but now it's up there. We're trying to get more people to kind of do it, because it is kind of an unusual thing, but the capability is there. We also have text minting. Text. Yeah, so we did a poll on that too, and of course everyone said yes. And then remember what was that? Oh, typed.art. Yeah, that site. And unfortunately it got shut down and people missed it, so they asked, hey, do you want it back? And we brought it back. And then we at teia.cafe, we created a display for it. So we have other stuff here. You can do it by platform as well. A lot of the platforms on Tezos. We also have some experimental stuff. You can check that out too. So you might have noticed that whenever I pull up, hey, Silas on post. I'm a fan of his music. Whenever we pull up something like an artwork, some of these take a while to load because, okay. But you notice that the color changes, huh? That's a loading one. So we have this adaptive, this is for the gallery, we have this adaptive color scheme. You can choose the color, black, white, different colors if you want, but there's also a gallery mode where it analyzes the content, the color content of the image, and then sets that as a color scheme, So thought that was kind of, it was like a nice way of like highlighting the art, right? Instead of just doing the typical black and white thing that most places do. Okay, so let's see. And yeah, you can do like full screen and stuff, if that's needed. Just, remove the buttons and make it more visually appealing. Okay, so we're gonna go into kind of the meat and bones of the website now, and this is where things get a little bit not tricky but complicated. So when you click on the thing itself, right, it takes you to the purchase page, and this purchase page is dynamically generated, and so it has this little hash here. But the reason for that is because we're trying to create a curation system, right? I did say teia.cafe is a discovery and curation platform. So anytime people make a purchase on our site, there is a curator. In this case, it's me, because I'm synced to the site, right? So imagine if you use this gallery at a public space somewhere. Someone scanning the QR code will be taken to this site, and the credit will be given to either the person that has their wallet synced or to an assigned curator through our playlist system. So I'll cover that later, but yeah, this one's not a good example because it's not for sale. But okay, let's start over. There's a lot to cover because there's a lot of features, and I normally just pitch one feature at a time, but I wanted this video to be very thorough in case, wanted to know about everything. So, yes. Okay. So we'll find one that is actually for sale. Let's see if this one works. Yes, it is. Okay, so yeah, so we have this curation system, and I'm going to explain it in great detail because there's a lot of detail, right? It goes, so there's a commissions there's commissions. So me as a person that curated this is getting paid for curating. It's similar to Object's referral system, right? But this is our own version of it. So if someone buys the NFT through a referral by me, I get paid, I get paid this much, right? And it's right here. And then this is basically the marketplace purchase. So we're leveraging Object and Teia's contracts right now. We don't do any minting, just to be clear. We don't do minting on teia.cafe. We're taking what's already there from Object and Teia, and then we're facilitating a sale on behalf of them, if that makes sense. So a lot of places like Object and even Teia to some extent, they have their own means, right? It's more vertically integrated, right? But in our case, we're a secondary. We're really doing sales in a secondary kind of way, not a the terms get a little confusing, but you know what I mean, right? We're basically making a sale on behalf of them, right? And we charge a certain service charge. And basically, the difference between this and object is that we are pushing the costs onto the consumer, as opposed to, so it's a markup, right? And it's a markup in price, as opposed to a lot of places where they kind of do it internally, right? And so we're not like interjecting or taking anything away from what other platforms are doing. We're just adding something on top, if you think of it that way. So the interesting thing about our curation contract is you can click curate, right? And you can set the curation fee yourself. This is not something that most places offer right now. A lot of these, when you go to object, I think the fee is either between 2.5 or 5, somewhere around there, right? It changes sometimes, but here you have control over what percent you want to mark up as the curator. This is very, very common in trad art, right? Like, this is how the business works. But say that you want to do it for more than the price. You want to mark it up, right? So original price is 20. But say you're like, oh no, hey artist, I believe in you more than maybe you believe in yourself. I think you should charge 170. And so this allows curators to kind of set the price, because they're usually more closer to the customer than most artists are. Most artists, at least in my experience, they like to make art, and they don't really want to deal with all that business stuff. Even as an artist myself, I really don't. If I'm making music, I would rather just be making music. I really don't want to deal with this. It's easier for me when I do this with other people's works, but at least for myself, I don't want to think about it, because it distracts you from your craft. So yeah, that's the reason we did it this way. And so this incentivizes the curator. It's not just what you bought. The price of the NFT is not just what you bought it as, but you can actually set the price yourself without having to ask the artist. Now, this can lead to some problems sometimes, because, in a way, the artists, it's giving control of the price setting to someone else, right? But the way this thing works is, because we don't interject anything into the existing contracts, it's just a markup, right? They can only make as much as they asked for originally, right? They'll make 20 at least, right? You can't do negative. Like, oh, you're actually gonna lose money. No, right? That's gonna give you an error. So you can only make the minimum of what you originally asked for and more, because see, now it costs way more, right, than 20. But we actually take the data from the royalties rate and give that back to the artists, right? And so what happens sometimes is that when you have a curator who's like famous, or they're kind of high up there, right? They might take an unknown artist's work, publish it, or curate it on their behalf, but then the artists get nothing in return. That's actually happened with some Ethereum projects that I'm not going to mention, but yeah, it's kind of terrible, right? So we don't want that to happen. So that's why we added the royalties. We took the existing royalties rates that already is on NFT mints, right? It's already there, and we're giving some of that back so that the artist always gets something in return, right? So this person set it at 15, which is pretty standard. But yeah, so they'll get 15 of the curation rate. That makes sense. So in theory, everybody wins like all the time, and that's why we're trying to push for this, because the incentives are aligned in a way between the artists, curators, and even the platform. We're getting something out of it too, right? 2.5, so should be good for everyone. Okay, so that is our curation contract. Now, the other part is when curators curate, right? What do? They need to organize it in some way, right? So object has their collections, right? Yeah, you know what I mean, right? They have that thing where you can pick certain works and organize it according to a gallery, right? That's that's something really basic that every gallerist needs, right? Just a list. So we have a system like that in place also. So when you look around, you can just hit favorites, and we have or you can add it by URL, and then you have a list of all your favorite NFTs, and imagine if you wanted to put on a show, right? Like a show at a gallery, or just have like a rotating list of displays, right? You can do it here. And the difference between this and other sites, again, is that this is all on chain. So test playlist description, playlist for Fortify Labs. Creation fee, again, there's no maximum, right? You can set it to however you want, and that sets the default fee that actually is a commission, right? Yeah, so I'll be reasonable and be 15. You can also split it according to different addresses. So if you want it between yourself, it saves it's a curation with multiple parties involved. You can also do that. Let's see. I'm going to connect to my wallet now. I'm not gonna show the seed phrase. I'm not that transparent. Okay. There's my wallet. Just for testing, I'm just gonna put it in twice, so I'll get paid twice, even though it's the same thing. Let's do like 33. Oh yeah, it won't. It has to add up to 0 and 100. It won't let you make mistakes. Shares do not total. Adjustments need fine. So okay. So right, I'll get 41, and I will also get 58. So then you can also choose a cover image. Maybe I don't know, do one of these. I've been making these lamps for other reasons, by the way. Oops. Oh. Oh wait, actually I shouldn't do that. I should auto-generate the color. Forgot about that. We have so many features, I forgot a lot of them. Yeah, so it just pulls the images and it generates a cover for you. Yep, and then you save this. Fortify Labs test cover or something. This is actually important legally speaking because we could do it for them and upload it for them, but it's important that the user does it themselves so that yeah, because these are people's works, right? So we don't want to be liable for that. Yeah. So okay, yeah. So great. Nearest value. Oh, it needs to be yeah, I probably should change that around a bit. Okay, I'll be totally transparent. There are a few bugs, but that's like easily fix that. Okay, so now it's minting. Actually, I'm on GhostNet, or will it work? Yeah. No, it's not. It's not gonna work. But yeah, we're updating our backend right now. So okay, but if it did, if it did, it would show up here, and I have a few tests I've done earlier. Yep, so it shows up as a playlist, and that's basically it. That's a playlist. It's an on-chain playlist, right? And this is completely on-chain, so that means it's public, and it's a resource that anyone can use, and so that's kind of what we're going for, like we really wanted to stretch the idea of the open source-ness of teia itself. So you can think of teia.cafe as kind of like an extension of what teia itself is, right? So yeah, so everything's on chain, and you can also use this as a gallery, as shown earlier. And so then you can do it, and you click on the link or you scan the QR, and then it takes you to the oops, this is actually the cover. So the cover is usually not for sale. That might change, but yep. So it comes here and it shows up, and it has the curation rate that you set earlier. Okay. Okay, I think that's it for the playlists. Oh, wait, but there is more. There's a lot more. I also made a baker board because the big thing that we're trying to do right now, or at least I am in the community, is we're trying to establish closer relationships between the bakers and the artists, because bakers have if you see, bakers have money. Some of them have a lot of money. Look at some of these whales with like 4 million. God, you know. So yeah, and um, so I'm not gonna cover everything, but like I think if you look at how traditional arts institutions work, they have what makes it viable is having close relationships between the financing and the artists themselves. Like, for example, I live in Seattle and I'm close to a public radio station called KEXP. And, it's a very, very well funded, well established radio station. And it gets a lot of prestige. But if you look at it, it's sponsored by American Express. you know, it's called American Express, Center or whatnot. So it's very early, right? But I thought that just giving sort of like a recognition of like what the bakers are doing in the ecosystem, as and the idea is that we're going to be trying to be creating connections, and even bakers like need art, right, for various things. Like if they're running their own business, this is probably not the only thing that a lot of them do. Then say they make a logo, or they need a design, or they need music for the event, or they need some code, or they need someone to work on their website, or anything, right? We can like facilitate those types of relationships or projects, collaborations, whatever you want to call it, and that will be basically, what's the word? The way we connect it is through NFTs, Because if you look on like Twitter and on social media, a lot of these bakers are pretty active, and they do talk with like artists pretty directly, and that doesn't happen a lot. Like that's what makes Tezos a really special place to do your work in, because the DeFi people and the artists are actually in contact with one another. A lot of times that doesn't happen, especially in the big projects. It's usually very top down, right? They get throwing some money at them, and like, hey, do this, but there's not a sense of like community like we have. So in order to take this to the next level, I do think it's important that we sort of connect the dots together, because I think for the most part most people get along, right? And well, not always, but but most people like each other on Tezos, and but they were waiting for kind of this a way to do this, and so yeah, so I took the data from the APIs, the public APIs out there, and put this on. But this is just a start, So we're going to be adding messaging. There's going to be a way for people to message each other from here to between artists, and do it directly on chain as well. So that's not out yet, but I'll talk about that later. But yeah, so the main thing is that communication is important, and I do think having relationships between the art and the money people is very, very important. Okay, so that's that. I'm just gonna click on the next button, which is our radio. So I did say I come from a music background, and so our site is going through a major overhaul right now, if you haven't noticed. And it's because I come from a music background. I kind of decided it's gonna, that's my expertise, right? And especially with the playlists and stuff, the idea from a playlist actually comes from music albums, or Spotify or whatever you want to call it, right? So a lot of the site is slowly becoming more and more radio. Like you might have like noticed that in the playlist, right? It's more like a list. It used to be an image board, but now it's more like a list, and I think it's just easier to manage, you know. So this is the radio. Oh, there's silo samples again. Again, the adaptive color thing, right? It's taking the image from this thing, pulling the colors, and we kind of made it. This is probably the version 2 of the adaptive design. So I don't know, it's kind of cool, right? Like it changes the color according to what the artist did, right? So the artist controls the system rather than the other way around, you know. And I think that's what people want to see, really. Very, very, very. Yeah, so I use this page to like do my work in sometimes because yeah, there's a lot actually. This is good. I'm showing there's a lot of really good music on Tezos, like for real. you know some of them are even famous, like that Mike Shinoda guy, right? that popped up. He's been, in case you didn't know, Mike Shinoda, from the Ziggurats project, he's been posting every day on Tezos for the last 2 years on his AI slash, music project. Yeah, it's weird that a lot of people don't even know about that, you know. Okay, so now it's more like nitty gritty stuff. Yeah, so these are some feeds we've been working on. Well, pages rather. So this is community-based things. So it's like this talks about the teia fountain, right? This is gives subsidies to artists who are just starting out on Tezos and helps them with minting costs, right? And also just like a little thanks to the donors, right? Like actually Object has been really supportive of this, right? I mean, it is in their own interest too because they do index their tokens, but still, not a bad thing, right? FX hash was given to the fountain as well. Salawaki Wise, some people we might recognize. So I will be talking. Since I've gotten here to Seattle, I will be talking to a lot of. What makes Teia interesting is that it's a community-owned nonprofit. We are registered, right? We're a registered nonprofit, like for real, but it's run by the DAO, like pretty much completely. And I do think there's people in the nonprofit sector and the public sector that would be interested. And then part of that is really like giving, right? This is basically what you see at a donations board, right? Even in real life. So it's like, oh, thank you for your donation, right? And I think that's yeah, that's why that's there. Here's more like nitty gritty info about the DAO itself. Lots and lots of people, including myself, who are in here. And just an overview of the tokenomics, just because people don't realize. There are a bunch of Teia tokens floating around. It is purchasable on KeepuSwap or 3Route, some of those decentralized exchanges. But the core supply is controlled by this multisig here. So, this can only be issued with a vote, and through the DAO. So, oh yeah, I even put a link here. And just some random stuff, recent sales, that's pretty straightforward, right? Okay, but here's the thing. Okay, I did say that this was also a copyright platform too. So save the best for last, So if you weren't aware of it, oh, it's gonna be an hour long, but there's no way around it, unfortunately, or maybe fortunately. So we did a similar thing here. Would you like to see? Oh, that's a error. This one is the custom license. I also did this, but basically you wanted to give artists the ability to set copyright, and usage rights. So what I mean by that is that this is something every artist in the trad art or whatever you want to call it needs. You go to Mint, and it's kind of tucked away right now in the license drop down. But when you go to custom license, this is live, by the way, so you can check it whatever you like. Right to reproduce. So the artist here can generate their own document, and it auto generates this document that gets automatically attached to the Mint, And so this is the big bet that we're taking, because the copyright, this is a market that already exists. If you want to talk about like market size and what is the potential, right? The markets, this is something that people pay money for already, just not on crypto yet, because normally to do this, this kind of actually no, I really need to show this actually. Oops, wrong. Nope. Actually, when people like Mike Shinoda, who is super successful and famous, it's funny, he added this like link here. This is all on chain. You can check it out yourself. I'm not making any of this up. To his NFTs, he started attaching these agreements. This is what you can or cannot do with my music. Whether you read it or not is one thing, but at least it's there, right? So basically, this is the same thing as that, and this gives every artist on Teia the same kind of control that people like he does, right? He probably hired an expensive lawyer to do this, right? But not everyone can afford that. So then you set your royalties here. I mean, royalties, of course, too, but the copyright clauses here. It's optional, of course, right? If you click none, it's basically all rights reserved. Like, that's the default. And then after you mint it, here's the tests, right? After you mint it, you can go to copyright, and it shows up on here. And you can go on the metadata, and it's all right here. And this what makes this powerful is that this is standardized, and it's owned by the DAO, not a private company. That's important because when these clauses are, anyone could like just do this on their own server or whatever, but what makes this different from what a lot of others startups tried to do in the past, and this has been tried before, just to be clear, but all of them failed. I think the failure rate is about 100%, because when you have one company managing all this, like copyright laws are really complicated, and it's like overlapping, and it's like, and so it's just hard for like a single entity to manage this privately. So I think this is where Teia can really shine, because it's open source and nobody can really touch it, as long as it's agreed upon by the community. And there has been a ruling lately. You might have seen Brian Armstrong post about it, in favor of this kind of thing. Yeah, see, the U.S. Treasury sanctions against Tornado Cash are unlawful. So basically, if you're an open source code project like Teia is, there are restrictions of what you can do against. You can't treat them like a private company, And even if they did, like, what would that even look like? Because no one owns Teia, It's completely run by the DAO and by technically like 3,000 people, right? We have 3,000 members almost. So so because that's we mentioned this on chain, it shows up on our site. Oop. Ready to go. Oh, there it is. So some people have been experimenting with it, A lot of it is mine because, I was trying to test it myself, and what I'm working with a vendor, Tuna Kuna. Might have heard of him. He's also a big collector on Tezos, but he lives in Seattle, pretty close to where I am, and he's going to start using this to sell physical prints of artists. Actually, it's probably down here somewhere. Yeah, no, Kyle Flemmer, yeah. So he's going to be selling these as prints in his local art market. So yeah, there's a lot going on. You probably noticed, I've been like really busy, but yeah, I'm finally like letting people know what's been going on, because I think there's a lot of work I had to do in the early stages, and I have applied. Yeah, I think it's somewhere in here where they asked for that, but I have applied for grants before, got rejected, but it's fine. In hindsight, our site really wasn't ready yet, but I feel like it's getting there. And okay, before I end and go to the last pitch, you can also look at your own. You can make radio stations, radio playlists, and radio or galleries out of your wallet directly. This is what is in your wallet right now. We tried to make it as smooth as possible, make it as easy as possible for people just to do stuff. We also have a recommendation engine. Oh my god. Okay, I think that's after this is the end. And also a public profile. And again, because everything is on chain, everything is public. So there is no data that is not already, that can't already be seen, if you know what I mean, So this is your wallet, a lot of it kind of takes you to the same places, but yep. And it has a recommendation engine similar to the subjects one, maybe a little bit. I know they have one too. It's pretty nice, right? You just sync your wallet, click a button, and then it's like, hey, why don't you check these out, right? Ours takes a little longer because they're they're better optimized than we are, but it shows up eventually, right? And then yeah, so it's like, hey, check this out, right? And it just like kind of analyzes your what's inside your wallet and like common holders or common topics or keywords, stuff like that. Leaderboards, similar to the recent sales thing, you know. Okay, so going back to the pitch. So the pitch is right now. I'm working with Joe Simon. Like I said, we're kind of a two-person team at the moment. But Joe and I have been paying him. Technically his employer, I guess. But he's been doing work for us part time, for the last actually 1.5 years or so. Yeah, we've been working together for a while. Yeah, feel free to talk to him about it too. We're pretty open about our projects in that way. But basically, I need more of his time, and yeah, so the reason why I'm applying for this is because I've been doing everything out of pocket, and it would help a lot if I had some income coming in. And I'll send the numbers over along with this. I can't do that live, but that's basically what we're asking funding for, and I have a list of projects that will result from that, because yeah, right, I've been doing this, pretty much. I don't want to call it a hobby because it's more than that, but yeah, I haven't been getting paid for it, right? I'm basically leveraging my investments in order to get some of these things done, and that pays for the work that Joe does as well. So if we can get at least a little bit of income coming in, that would help a lot. And also because I moved into a new state. I used to live in Los Angeles, that's California. I moved to Seattle, Washington now, and thinking of redoing my business entity, So if I can get some help in that regard, that would be a huge help as well, because last time we formed kind of like an LLC, but it was a little bit haphazard. And especially if I want to continue doing this work with Joe, we want a structure that'll make sense, and especially with the people that we're working with in Tezos, what makes sense for them as well, right? What would be the easiest way for us to help each other out, basically. So, okay, well, thank you for your time. I know it's like super long. It's actually exactly 1 hour. So if you ever get the time to look at this, and if you skip around, I won't get offended. But that's the gist of what's going on at teia.cafe. There's a lot going on, but at the same time, I tried to do features one at a time, and it just wasn't clicking because art is a really, really complicated space to work in, and in order for any app to work, it has to reflect that complexity. even all those a lot of the purchasing stuff, all these details, right? Like it's a lot, but it's also necessary, but copyright, let's look at the copyright licensing market size. There's money in it. Wow, 163,000 million. What the? I don't think this is accurate. Maybe the AI is a little off. Wow, that's by 2027. Wow, that's a lot of money. Wow, wow. Well, if this is true, if we even do anything in here, we'll be rich by tomorrow, apparently. But I don't know, you're right. But there is, anyway. The point is, there is money. Like people pay for this stuff. People need art for stuff. Any small business or even big business, like they're like, hey, we need a logo, and we need to do it in the right way with the copyright and make sure the artists get paid right in a fair way. Like, a lot of people get cynical about how the entertainment and music industry works, and part of it is true, but at the same time, like, we got to make it easier for people to do things the right way, and that's what's going to make the difference. And so, yeah, I mean, yep. So that's basically it. If we can create a version of this on chain, then Tezos would be the first, because nowhere else is doing this, at least not in the right way. Because other places usually fall back to hiring lawyers and doing things through the traditional system, but that just ends up reinventing the wheel, and that's not something that we're really interested in doing. So, all right. So yeah, thanks a lot for sticking through that, and yeah, looking forward to talking to you. Okay, take care.